How much money does a career as a police officer cost? Based on the case that we will present to you today, it is about $1,000.
It's all the blue hundreds are right there behind that receipt. Thank you. All that's my money. He didn't have that.
This is your money?
Yes, I heard him crumble it up. Thank you.
Serving and protecting are things that officers of the law should be known for. Some of them, however, took these terms and applied them only to themselves, and instead of helping citizens, they used the power that was bestowed upon them as an opportunity to aid their own situation. Today, we will dive deeply into a very curious case that occurred at the beginning of 2024. The footage that we are seeing here was released in June of 2024 and comes from a body-worn camera of multiple police officers. It involves the event that started out on March 14th, 2024, and was supposed to be just a traffic stop. A cop on a motorbike wanted to inspect a vehicle that was speeding.
Good. Hey, I clocked in at 68, okay? That's why I'm stopping you. Yeah, do you have your lights on you?
As court-reviewed documentation will later show, the driver we see being pulled over was going 68 miles per hour, or almost 110 kilometers per hour, in a 45 miles or 70 kilometers per hour zone. The cop didn't seem to want to make a big deal out of it and asked for documentation, which was provided politely by the driver, who seemed to be complying. Things, however, get complicated once the officer checks the provided ID and finds out there's more trouble brewing here than he initially thought.
Hey, appreciate you coming out. I haven't talked to him yet.
This is when Henry Chapman, the officer you see exiting the vehicle, enters the scene. In case you are wondering, yes, this is the guy the whole story is about. As soon as he arrived on the scene, he was already informed about the situation and walked straight towards the suspect's car, ready to make an arrest.
Hey man, go step out there real quick, I'm gonna show you something.
Apparently, the 29-year-old driver, Moncri Tyree Moon, had an outstanding warrant issued by a U.S. Marshal. For those of us who aren't familiar with the term, it means that a judge has issued a warrant for this person to be arrested on site.
Sir, come on, step back here. Go ahead and face that call. Put your phone on the top of it.
What am I doing? I'm
You're
explaining
arrested.
everything to you. That's why I'm having you out. Okay?
So you are under arrest at this time.
While at it, let's mention that this guy was issued a warrant for weapon violations, which should give us a hint as to why the officer who stopped this driver immediately called for backup. Acting in accordance with the information they had, the two cops proceed to put cuffs on the man and explain to him that he is immediately put under arrest and that any explanations that he may require will be provided soon after. We can see that Moon complies and appears entirely cooperative as the cops start searching him. He clear-headedly asks what this is about, and the cops explain he will be informed about everything as soon as they make sure this will go without issues.
Do you want to bring these items with you or leave them in the car?
Yeah, you can give me. You can put them in my pocket.
Now, when you're patting down someone who is mixed up in a weapons-related violation, naturally, you want to be thorough, which is nothing short of what we see the cop doing. He goes through all of the guy's pockets and even provides the man with the choice of whether to take the items with him or leave them in the car.
I'm going to leave that cash in there. Any other pockets I need to know about? No, sir.
This is the first moment that cash appears, but don't worry, the amount you see here is nothing compared to the one discovered shortly. And again, almost as a foreshadowing, as soon as we see the money appearing in front of the body camera, here comes our man of the hour. He gets involved immediately and opens a door where the suspect will be placed. Meanwhile, the cop has found a larger amount of cash in another pocket and leaves it right out there in the car.
So, I don't know if you've had a history with them or not, but you got a U.S. Marshal for a weapons violation. That's all it tells me. Okay, when you get down there, they're going to print it out for you. Okay.
The moment that he gets into the car, we can even see that the suspect has expressed a concern about the cash that was taken from him, and if we pay close attention, we can almost see the idea forming in Chapman's mind. He's clearly eyeing the cash, and if you're wondering how much it is, it's about $8,000, which the other officer has placed in Henry Chapman's car. Only after the suspect was safely placed in the back of the vehicle did the cop approach him and provide all the answers that he was owed.
What is that?
Oh, that's my mine. I've never seen it in my life. What are you doing on my property then?
Roll the window down and tell you what turn you're for.
The man explains why, after checking his ID, the driver was arrested, and Henry asks for a phone call that is within his rights. Once again, our suspect here turns his attention towards his belongings, making sure to get a verbal confirmation that his things will be safe. Now, getting back to the reason why this cop was called in, it is to transport the arrested man. Chapman was supposed to move him from the traffic stop to the University City Division Patrol Office. Considering that he used this as an opportunity to steal the suspect's money, he showed the world what he feels about accountability, and not just that, but that he may as well be one of the most expensive Uber rides out there. Once these two arrived at the station, other officers were included in his apprehension.
Yeah, here. Here you go.
I got you.
Yeah, she's counting it right now.
You're gonna watch me, okay?
And since the suspect claimed that the officer transporting him was doing something suspicious with the money that was beside him, the other cop offered to count the money in front of the man. This certainly seems reasonable at the moment, but considering how many times cops offer to do the same thing, even as the suspect is outright claiming that Henry Chapman has stolen his money, we may ask ourselves, are these people trying to get to the truth or trying to keep their colleague out of the trouble?
Sir, listen to me. Tell me how much cash you had on you. What was the amount?
I just want to see. I'm not gonna lie. Can you check? I'm not going nowhere. Can you check your fellow officer for me, please?
Yeah. Huh?
Hell no. He just touched my. I heard the rubber band pop. He told me, oh, I had to look. And he's moving. He's moving between his legs.
Whatever may be the case, we see that Chapman is given more trust than we will learn later he deserves, as he is allowed to just hand the money through the window to his colleague who is counting it. Staying polite and respectful, the suspect realizes how unnecessary the counting of the money is when they can just take a look between the officer's legs. And here is why.
What were we saying? 190, right?
I wasn't saying that you altered my money.
No, I didn't say you said that, okay? All right.
Can y'all I don't know the protocol with that, but like can y'all check y'all like his person? Because like if anything is on him,
Look,
like
sir.
it would be in big. No, I don't look.
I'm gonna show you right here. Look at me. Look at me.
All of you guys probably have kids out there. You know what I'm saying?
Look.
So look, this is all I want to explain to you guys.
Even as his request to simply look at the cop's legs are being ignored, our suspect seems to have once again caught the man as he was trying to move the money and hide it better. Then again, isn't it suspicious that none of Henry's colleagues react to these very serious allegations and let him simply sit there in the car, all the while actually hiding money between his legs? Well, realizing that he has put his entire career and his freedom at risk for about $800, we can see that Henry is starting to sweat.
It's all the blue hundreds are right there behind that receipt. Thank you. All that's my money. He didn't have that.
This is your money?
Yes, I heard him crumble it up. Thank you. Thank you. All that's been
That ain't
recorded,
my
right?
money.
That's my money.
So finally, after a lot of ignored accusations, the cops start taking things seriously and Henry leaves his vehicle. Look at his posture. That looks as if he is standing in a lineup waiting to be recognized as the guilty party by someone on the other side of a see-through glass. Well, that is an appropriate stance, considering that while moving out, he managed to push the cash from between his legs into a front door pocket. In the meanwhile, the lady officer kept insisting on counting the money and asking the suspect to name the exact amount that he had on him.
Do you know how much cash you had on you so I can count it out so we can verify the total? Do you know approximately how much you had on you?
if I say a number and I get it wrong because he touched the window, then it's gonna be all wrong. But I just don't understand why I heard my rubber band being popped.
Considering that he wasn't sure, the suspect didn't want to guess and make a mistake, as it could lead to this officer actually getting away with stealing from him. As we will learn, this was a smart move. Well, after standing there saying nothing for a while, the first words that come out of Henry's mouth are lies through which he is trying to cover himself. He even has the audacity to keep pointing toward the suspect as he is explaining that he was just moving the money around, just so he could give it to his fellow cops. As if there's any meaning to it, he grabs an envelope and stands right there in front of the car, as if to prove the point that we all know doesn't exist. Meanwhile, we don't have to be experts in body language to say when someone is childishly positioning their body to cover the money they have stolen. The officer is clearly placing his hand and his whole body in front of the car door and trying to take everyone's attention away and towards the suspect. What definitely helps here for the Moon's case is that he remains calm all the while, even though he is a suspect. He was done an injustice and must have felt oppressed, so he had to hold dearly to the truth so as not to get tricked out of justice. And if you think we're being harsh, look here as the woman keeps requesting him to guess the total amount of cash, even though he already explained he doesn't want to make such a dangerous mistake. The other officer, who genuinely offered support before, is now telling Moon that he had checked the suspicious cop visually before he left the car. So the suspect actually questions whether their body cameras are on, since he can't believe that he is being treated as a child. Then, the suspect says something that must have sounded reasonable even to the officers, which is, if this guy wasn't guilty of stealing the cash, why wouldn't he just open the car door and show them inside?
There would be no reason for him to show me his pockets and stuff. Like, I know for a fact.
No, I want you to feel
comfortable. I would have
Yes,
felt,
yes, sir.
I would have felt comfortable if your colleagues would have searched you at the exact time where I knew where the money was, because I seen you kept going in between your legs, and then every time everybody put all of the attention on me, you kept moving. I don't know if it's in your door, I don't know where it's at, but just like, look.
Instead, he chose to squeeze through the narrowly opened car door before quickly closing it behind him and obviously covering it with his body. Seeing as there is no backing out of this, the female officer finally agrees to count the money and see how much there is before they can discern if any is missing. Not to make lightly of a serious situation, but considering how many times he had to ask for this to happen as soon as they started counting the money, the Moon must have felt as if a very tiresome itch was being scratched. We can also notice how much interest Officer Henry has taken in the counting. It is almost as if he is trying to find an opportunity to return the stolen cash and get out of this pinch. As soon as the counting is over, and the officer says there's $7,190 there, we see him in the back, handling something in his car. If we were questioning whether the suspect was being rude up until now, why don't we ask ourselves why a man accused of stealing from a suspect was allowed to go near his vehicle, the same one that the suspect is claiming holds the stolen money.
In front of you, so you can see how much is in there, because when we turn this over to the sheriff's office, it's then going to go to the marshals, that's going to go to the next sheriff's office. So this is us verifying that we're putting all your money in here.
Can you write my name on there also?
But let's remember that there wasn't one but two piles of cash, even while the initial search was being done, not letting himself be riled up. The suspect asks the officers what's the procedure now that will follow his claims that he has been robbed by no one else but a cop who was transporting him. At that moment, it seems Henry decided to throw out another distraction and try to cover his tracks, presenting himself as an honest person with nothing to hide.
So y'all I don't know the protocol with that, but like y'all check y'all like his person, because like if anything is on him,
Look,
like
sir.
it would be in big. No, I don't
Look, I'm gonna show you right here. Look at me. Look at me.
All of you guys probably have kids out there, you know what I'm saying?
Look.
So look, this is all I want to explain to you guys.
He actually goes through his pockets and takes things out, showing that he has no cash on him. Again, Dodging this obvious trap, the suspect doesn't allow himself to be tricked, and he clearly explains that he sees no reason for an adult person to empty out their pockets as a way to prove they haven't stolen something. Henry, however, keeps up the act and says he just wants the suspect to feel comfortable. But this doesn't end well for him, considering he has given the perfect opportunity to the suspect to tell him precisely what would make him feel comfortable, which would be a quick and easy search of his vehicle that they all keep refusing to do, even though the suspect claims he saw the man hide the money between his legs and kept moving about during this conversation. Finally, the reasonable words seem to have reached the other cops' ears, and they decide to do the search.
How you know for a fact that I'm right?
Come here.
Do you mind if I move?
Come here.
I want you to hold me so you know that.
Okay. Do you see anything?
No cap. I'm not even gonna touch it. It's blue hundreds right here. It's all the blue hundreds are right there behind that receipt. Thank you. All that's my money. He didn't have that.
This is your money?
Yes, I heard him crumble it up. Thank you. All that's been recorded, right? That's my money.
Look at the frightened face of a cop who knows he is about to get caught. He opens the door and once again tries to hide the cash with his whole body. How shamelessly can you pretend to be fair while looking into the eyes of a man you have just stolen from? Isn't it a little embarrassing that, in the end, the suspect himself actually had to do the search and literally point out the stolen cash hanging from the car door? Isn't it priceless to see the facades finally crumbling down after proving his point?
I seen you still. Thank you, sir. If you don't mind, I just want to sit down so y'all don't try to say I'm resisting. I don't want to do nothing. All I know for a fact is I know what I know and I've seen it. I just wanted you guys to trust me, you know what I'm saying? That's why I was just acting a little irate, but I'm perfectly fine, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to expose you.
That is not me, bud.
Even as these two keep arguing, we see that the cops' colleagues don't seem to want to jump to conclusions, but then again, is it fair to ignore so many obviously suspicious signs and not at least try to get to the bottom of it immediately? The nail in the coffin of Officer Henry Chapman came from the suspect's assessment that there should be close to $8,000 in there, according to his calculation, and that he had just been to Wendy's. As we're looking at these pieces of evidence, including the cash and the receipt here, let us be the first to spell out busted. Refusing to comply with the demands of the reality that he has been caught, Officer Henry Chapman kept lying through his teeth, struggling to convince his colleagues, who, by the way, are still not reacting even to these very obvious clues. However, this time, it's not that they're not seeing what the suspect is saying, but they're trying to put together a clear case. Even as they're speaking, another officer is searching the car, making sure they do not allow an oversight, which could have happened if it weren't for the moon's persistence and calmness. Almost as an ending to Agatha Christie's book, our suspect, who turned into a detective, explains what he realizes must have happened, which is Officer Henry Chapman tried to steal the suspect's money as he was transporting him. After the big reveal, Moon asks the next logical question. Now that the cards are on the table, what is going to be done about this injustice? Making sure not to agitate the officers, he stays aware that he is still arrested on serious accounts, but doesn't feel this makes it okay for him to be ignored and robbed blind by an officer of the law. Realizing there is a sergeant there, the suspect asks questions that can't easily be ignored, such as, why would Officer Chapman even separate the money? Why would he not keep all of it in one place and give it to other cops at the same time, but keep a part of it back? Another very clear, wonder-inspiring inquiry was, what would have happened if he got the total amount of cash wrong when asked to guess? Would any of the officers even consider it possible that Officer Chapman has stolen from a suspect right in front of them? Even after the hard evidence showed up, Chapman was still allowed to move around and enter his vehicle, and the cops' attention was focused on getting the moon's details. Nevertheless, since everything was caught on camera, there is no hiding it. The sergeant honestly responds to Moon, telling him there is nothing he can do immediately, but he will set things in motion that will help get to the bottom of it. This is why he insists on checking if they have all of Moon's information, considering that he is still going to jail on account of the warrant for which he was brought in. This seems to have given Moon some peace of mind, as it was possibly one of the first moments that he felt as if his words, complaints, and worries were heard and would be acted upon. As we can see, the sergeant indeed remained true to his words as detectives were called in to begin the criminal investigation process. Not knowing how things will turn out, Moon stays a bit paranoid about the outcome and asks if it would be okay for him to have the names of the officers involved in this case written down. Funny enough, it could be Chapman's pen that seals his fate. Still, things again seem to fall on deaf ears as his requests are ignored, and the officers move on to another thorough search before he is sent on his way to jail. Still having concerns, even as they are about to close the car door behind him. He once again asks if he could get all the names of the people involved. Considering how long it took him to convince them something fishy is happening with Chapman, who can blame him? Once the dust had settled back in the station, about an hour later, cops were faced with an obviously complicated situation. Still, considering that the suspect's claims and accusations couldn't be ignored, something had to be done about it. While the higher-ups were informed and detectives sent out, Chapman's colleagues, some of which were present for the whole deal, went to make sure no unforeseeable events made things worse. They walked up to him and required his weapon for the time being. Whatever hopes of getting away with it, Chapman could have had up until that moment were lost immediately. He drops the act and apologizes to his colleagues, clearly feeling ashamed of his actions. Since he went from colleague to a suspect, he had to be kept a close eye on, so cops kindly let him know that he was to stay put and wait in this room until the investigation was over. Once the investigation came to a close, it was time for Chapman's colleagues to take on another unpleasant task. Finding him precisely where he was instructed to wait, they explained the situation to him briefly, and he was escorted further. After realizing what had happened, the detective started with an interview of the cop. He admitted that he had taken the money, but stated that he wasn't going to keep it. Which begs the question, what else were you going to do with them? Should Moon have thanked this officer for safekeeping? Whatever the cop's plan was, it fell through after detectives had spoken to Moon, who explained every detail of the event, and considering it was supported by video evidence, Chapman was immediately placed on unpaid leave, arrested, and charged with embezzlement. So much about the accountability he called upon. A day later, on March 15, 2024, Chapman resigned from his position as a police officer. Well, we certainly know one person who will be thrilled when they hear about this outcome. Thank you for watching.